The clock on my computer screen glowed 11:47 p.m. when Alexander Grayson's voice cut through the silence of the empty floor. "Miss Miller, I need the Volkov contracts revised before morning." My fingers ached from 8 hours of typing. The muscles in my lower back had long since progressed from discomfort to a dull, persistent throb that radiated down to my ankles. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Grayson Industries' executive floor, snow fell in thick, relentless sheets, transforming Manhattan into a blur of white and shadow. It was Christmas Eve. I'd watched the last of the staff leave 3 hours ago, their cheerful Merry Christmas echoing down the marble hallways as they rushed toward families, parties, warmth. I'd smiled and waved, my fingers already reaching for the next file Alexander had marked urgent, trying not to think about the studio apartment waiting for me. Empty. Cold. Just me and the Chinese takeout menu I kept pinned to my fridge. "Of course, Mr. Grayson," I said, my voice steady despite the exhaustion weighing on every syllable. 22 months as Alexander Grayson's personal secretary had taught me many things. The most important, never show weakness, never complain, never give him a reason to notice that underneath the efficient exterior, I was just a 22-year-old girl who sometimes cried in the bathroom and ate lunch alone at her desk. I pulled up the contracts, my eyes burning as I scanned the dense legal language. Alexander didn't celebrate Christmas. Didn't celebrate anything, really. Thanksgiving had passed with him in the office until midnight. New Year's would be the same. To him, holidays were inconveniences, disruptions to the steady rhythm of business and power that defined his existence. The scent of his cologne drifted from his office, something expensive with notes of cedar and smoke. I'd learned to recognize it, the way it announced his presence before he spoke. Learned to brace myself for the impact of his attention, brief and burning as a match strike. Through his open door, I could see him at his desk, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled to reveal forearms corded with muscle. His dark hair, usually perfectly styled, had been pushed back by impatient fingers throughout the day, giving him a disheveled look that made him seem almost human. Almost. Alexander Grayson was 34, though sometimes his eyes looked centuries old. Founder and CEO of Grayson Industries, his legitimate empire included real estate, shipping, and technology investments worth billions. But I wasn't naive. I'd worked for him long enough to recognize the meetings that didn't appear on any calendar, the phone calls taken in Italian with the door firmly closed, the men who visited wearing expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the violence in their eyes. My boss was a mob boss, and I was complicit in whatever darkness he orchestrated, filing his papers and scheduling his meetings and pretending I didn't understand what "handle the situation" really meant. The contract swam before my eyes. I blinked hard, forcing focus. Section 3. 7 needed revision. The delivery terms were too vague, leaving room for interpretation that could cost millions, or lives. With Alexander, it was sometimes hard to tell which he valued more. "Miss Miller." His voice again, closer now. I looked up to find him standing at my desk, those storm-gray eyes studying me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine, Mr. Grayson." The lie came easily. I'd been telling it for months. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the dark stubble that shadowed his face. He never shaved on long work days, and something about that imperfection made him more dangerous, more real. "When did you last eat?" I tried to remember. Breakfast had been coffee. Lunch had been more coffee. "I'm not hungry." Liar. But there was no heat in the word, just a flat statement of fact. He moved to the window, hands shoved in his pockets, shoulders tight with tension he never fully released. "You should have left hours ago. It's Christmas Eve. You're still here. I don't have anywhere else to be." The admission was quiet, almost lost beneath the howl of wind against glass. But you must. Family waiting? Friends? My throat tightened. No, sir. No one waiting. He turned then, studying me with those eyes that saw too much. No one? My parents died when I was 19. Car accident. I don't know why I told him. In nearly 2 years, we'd barely exchanged words that weren't about work. But something about the late hour, the empty building, the snow falling like the world was being erased, made honesty easier than pretense. I don't really have anyone. Something shifted in his expression, too quick to identify. I see. We stood in silence, the only sound the soft hum of computers and the storm outside. Finally, he exhaled sharply. Finish the contracts, then go home. That's an order. Yes, sir. He returned to his office, but I felt his attention on me even through the wall, a weight I'd grown accustomed to carrying. I worked faster, fingers flying across the keyboard, making the necessary changes while my body screamed for rest. By the time I saved the final revision, it was 12:23 a.m. Christmas Day. Merry Christmas to me. I gathered my things, my movements mechanical with exhaustion. My coat was thin, bought secondhand 3 years ago when I'd first moved to New York with dreams of making it as a writer. That dream had died somewhere between unpaid internships and mounting student loans. Now I filed papers for a man who probably had people killed and told myself it was fine because the salary was good. The elevator ride down felt endless. The lobby was deserted, just the night security guard who nodded as I passed. Outside, the storm had intensified. Snow fell so thick I could barely see across the street. The cold hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath, seeping through my inadequate coat to the bones beneath. I pulled out my phone, fingers already numb. No Ubers available, no taxis. Of course not. It was Christmas Eve in a blizzard. Anyone with sense was home, warm, safe. My apartment was 15 blocks away. I'd walked it before in better weather. How much worse could a snowstorm be? 10 minutes later, I had my answer. Much worse. The wind cut through my coat like it wasn't there, and my feet, in the heels I'd foolishly worn because Alexander had an investor meeting scheduled, were already soaked and frozen. Each step was agony, my body shaking so violently I had to stop every few yards to catch my breath. Stupid. This was so stupid. I should have stayed in the lobby. Should have asked the security guard to call someone. Should have done anything except decide to walk home in a blizzard because I was too proud to admit I needed help. The street was deserted. Just me and the snow and the terrible realization that I might actually freeze to death on Christmas morning because I was too stubborn to ask my mob boss for a ride. I didn't hear the car pull up beside me over the howl of the wind. Didn't realize anyone was there until a hand gripped my arm, spinning me around. Alexander Grayson stared down at me, his face a mask of fury barely contained. What the hell are you doing? Walking home. I managed through chattering teeth. In this? He gestured at the storm with his free hand, the other still gripping my arm like he thought I might blow away if he let go. Are you insane? He couldn't get a R ride. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Without another word, he steered me toward the black SUV idling at the curb, its hazard lights blinking orange in the whiteout conditions. He opened the back door and practically pushed me inside, following close behind. The heat hit me immediately, so intense after the cold that it hurt. I couldn't stop shaking, my whole body convulsing as Alexander barked orders at his driver. Marcus, take us to Miss Miller's address. Don't need, I started to protest. That wasn't a request. His voice was cold enough to match the storm outside. He shrugged out of his own coat, heavy wool and cashmere, and wrapped it around my shoulders. It smelled like him. Cedar and smoke and something uniquely Alexander. What's your address? I gave it, my voice small and defeated. The shaking wouldn't stop. If anything, it was getting worse as my body began to thaw in the car's warmth. Alexander watched me with an expression I couldn't decipher, his jaw tight, his hands clenched into fists on his thighs like he was physically restraining himself from something. Finally, he moved, pulling me against his side with one arm, the gesture stiff and awkward, like he'd forgotten how to offer comfort. "Relax," he said gruffly. "You're going into shock. Your body needs warmth." I should have pulled away. Should have maintained the professional distance we'd carefully preserved for 2 years. But I was so cold, and he was so warm, and for just a moment, I let myself lean into the solid strength of him. We rode in silence through the empty streets. The drive that should have taken 10 minutes stretched to 25 in the storm. When we finally pulled up outside my building, a shabby 5-story walk-up in a neighborhood that got rougher every year, I felt Alexander's whole body tense. "This is where you live." His voice was very quiet, very controlled, dangerous. "It's what I can afford. On the salary I pay you?" "Student loans, medical bills from my parents' accident." I pulled away from him, suddenly defensive. "Not all of us were born into wealth, Mr. Grayson." His eyes flashed. "Get out." The words stung more than they should have. I fumbled for the door handle, but his hand shot out, stopping me. "I'm coming with you." "That's not necessary." "Miss Miller." He turned me to face him, his hands on my shoulders, his face very close to mine. "I'm coming with you. I'm making sure you get inside safely. And then I'm going to determine whether this building has adequate heat, because if it doesn't, you're not staying here tonight." The authoritative tone should have made me angry. Instead, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest, something dangerous and entirely inappropriate. "You can't just—" "I can, and I will." He opened the door, keeping his coat wrapped around me as he guided me out into the storm. The building's entrance was unlocked, the security system broken 3 months ago and never repaired. We climbed 5 flights of stairs, my legs trembling with exhaustion and cold. Alexander stayed close behind me, his hand hovering near my back like he expected me to collapse. My studio apartment was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Small, clean, sparse. The few personal items I owned, books, a photo of my parents, a thrift store lamp. Couldn't hide the fact that I was barely surviving, just treading water in a city that chewed up dreamers and spit out the bones. Alexander moved to the radiator, pressing his palm against it. His expression darkened. "It's barely warm." "The landlord says—" "I don't care what the landlord says." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts with sharp, angry movements. "This is unacceptable. Mr. Grayson, please." I was shaking again, but this time from something other than cold. From the mortification of him seeing how I lived. From the exhaustion of pretending to be okay when I was so very not okay. "It's fine. I'm fine. You can go now." He looked up from his phone, really looked at me, and I watched his anger shift into something else, something that made my breath catch and my heart stutter. "You're not fine," he said quietly, crossing to me in 3 long strides. His hand came up to my forehead, and I felt the heat of his palm against my frozen skin. "You're burning up." I blinked, suddenly aware of the fever I'd been ignoring for days, the ache in my bones that wasn't just from exhaustion, the way my thoughts felt fuzzy and distant. "I just need sleep." The room tilted suddenly, Alexander's face swimming in my vision. I felt his arms catch me before I hit the floor, felt him lift me like I weighed nothing, heard him cursing in Italian as he carried me to my narrow bed. "Foolish girl," he muttered, his accent thickening with emotion. "Why didn't you tell me you were sick?" "Couldn't miss work," I mumbled, consciousness slipping away like water through my fingers. "Too important." The last thing I heard before darkness claimed me was Alexander's voice, soft and terrible with something that might have been fear. You're the important one, Audrey. God help me. You're the only important one. And then there was nothing but warmth and darkness, and the distant sense of strong arms holding me close, keeping me safe, refusing to let go. I woke to unfamiliar warmth and the scent of something cooking. For a moment, disoriented, I thought I was dreaming. Then reality crashed back. The storm, Alexander finding me, collapsing in my own apartment. I sat up too quickly, my head spinning, and realized I was no longer in my day-old work clothes. Someone had changed me into my own pajamas, soft cotton pants, and a worn NYU t-shirt. The mortification of that realization made heat flood my cheeks. "You're awake." Alexander's voice came from my tiny kitchenette. I turned to find him standing at my ancient stove, still in his dress shirt and trousers from yesterday, though the shirt was rumpled now, sleeves rolled up, top buttons undone. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble shadowing his jaw. He looked human in a way I'd never seen before. "What time is it?" My voice came out rough, throat raw. 2 p.m, Christmas Day. He brought me a glass of water, sitting on the edge of my bed with careful distance between us. "Drink." I obeyed, the cool liquid soothing my parched throat. "You stayed?" "Your fever spiked to 103 around 3 this morning. I wasn't leaving you alone." He said it matter-of-factly, like spending Christmas Eve caring for his sick secretary was perfectly normal behavior. "I called a doctor I trust. He came, examined you, left antibiotics and fever reducers. You have pneumonia, Miss Miller. Early stages, but it could have been serious if left untreated." Pneumonia. The word settled over me with dull recognition. I'd felt wrong for days, but kept pushing through, kept showing up, kept pretending because that's what I did. That's who I'd had to become to survive. "I'm sorry," I whispered, "for the trouble." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Don't apologize for being human, Audrey." The use of my first name shocked me into silence. In 22 months, he'd never once called me anything but Miss Miller. Hearing my name in his deep voice, rough with exhaustion and something else I couldn't identify, made my chest tight. "I made soup," he continued, standing and moving back to the kitchenette. "Nothing fancy. The doctor said you needed liquids and rest." He paused, his back to me. "I also called your landlord. Threatened to have the building condemned if he didn't fix the heating system immediately. He's sending someone today." "You didn't have to—" "Yes, I did." He turned, carrying a bowl of soup that smelled like chicken and herbs and comfort. "You work yourself to exhaustion for me, Audrey. The least I can do is make sure you have adequate heat and medical care." He set the bowl on my nightstand, then met my eyes. "The very least." There was something raw in his expression, something vulnerable that I'd never seen in the controlled mask he wore at the office. This wasn't Alexander Grayson, mob boss and billionaire CEO. This was just a man who'd spent Christmas Eve caring for someone who mattered to him, though neither of us dared say it aloud. "Thank you," I said softly, "for staying, for the doctor, for everything." He nodded once, sharp and dismissive, uncomfortable with gratitude. "Eat, then more medicine. The doctor said you need to rest for at least 3 days before even thinking about returning to work. But the Volkov contracts can wait." His voice was firm. "Nothing is worth your health, Audrey. Nothing." I ate the soup slowly, hyper-aware of him moving around my tiny apartment, tidying things that didn't need tidying, his presence too large for the small space. When I finished, he handed me pills and more water, watching to make sure I swallowed them. "Sleep," he ordered. "I'll be here." "You can't stay here all day. It's Christmas. You must have somewhere. I told you last night. I don't have anywhere else to be." The admission was quiet, almost lost beneath the sound of my ancient radiator clanking to life, The landlord had actually sent someone. My family is gone. My father died 5 years ago. My mother the year before that. I have business associates, not friends. So no, Audrey, I have nowhere else to be except here, making sure you're safe. The loneliness in his words mirrored my own so perfectly it hurt. We were the same, I realized. Both orphaned, both alone, both pretending we were fine when we were slowly drowning in isolation. Then stay, I heard myself say. Please. Something shifted in his expression, softening the hard edges. Sleep, Angel. I'll be right here. I drifted off to the sound of him settling into my one chair, to the knowledge that for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't spending Christmas alone. And neither was he. When I woke again, it was dark outside, the apartment lit only by my small lamp. Alexander sat in the chair, his laptop open, working even now. But the moment I stirred, his attention shifted to me completely. How are you feeling? Better. It was true. The fever had broken, leaving me weak but clearer-headed. What are you working on? The Castellano merger. Nothing urgent. He closed the laptop. Hungry. Starving. He ordered food from somewhere expensive, the kind of place that was probably closed for Christmas but opened for Alexander Grayson's call. We ate Thai food straight from the containers, sitting on my bed because there was nowhere else. The intimacy of it strange and comfortable all at once. Why did you become my secretary? He asked suddenly, surprising me. You have a degree in literature. You wanted to be a writer. You investigated me? I should have been offended. Instead, I felt weirdly touched that he'd cared enough to look. I investigate everyone who works for me. But I'm asking you now, why give up on writing? I picked at my pad thai, the question cutting deeper than he knew. Reality. Student loans. Rent. Food. The dream of being a writer doesn't pay bills. I met his eyes. You were hiring. The salary was more than I'd ever made. I told myself it was temporary, just until I saved enough to pursue writing again. That was 22 months ago. You still write? Sometimes. Late at night when I can't sleep. Nothing good. Nothing I'd show anyone. I laughed bitterly. Turns out I'm better at filing your contracts than creating anything worthwhile. I doubt that. His voice was quiet, certain. Show me something. Anything you've written. Why? Because I want to see who you are when you're not being my perfect, efficient secretary. I want to see the real Audrey Miller. The request terrified me more than anything he could have demanded in the office. But maybe it was the fever, or the exhaustion, or the fact that he'd spent Christmas caring for me when he had no obligation to do so. Maybe it was the loneliness I saw reflected in his eyes, the recognition of a kindred spirit. Whatever the reason, I found myself reaching for my laptop, pulling up a file I'd never shown anyone. It was a short story, only 3,000 words, about a girl who fell in love with a monster and discovered he was more human than the people who'd called themselves her friends. I handed him the laptop without looking at him, my heart hammering with vulnerability. He read in silence, his expression unreadable. The minutes stretched into eternity. Finally he looked up, and I saw something in his eyes that made my breath catch. This is beautiful, Audrey. Raw and honest and beautiful. He set the laptop aside carefully. Why are you wasting your talent filing my papers? Because talent doesn't pay rent. It could. If you had someone who believed in you, who supported you. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his gray eyes intense. What if you didn't have to choose between survival and dreams? What if you could have both? That's not how the world works. It's how my world works. His voice was firm, commanding. I decide what's possible, Audrey. I make the rules. And I'm telling you that you shouldn't have to sacrifice who you are for a paycheck. Are you firing me? Panic spiked through my chest. No, I'm offering you a choice. He stood, pacing my small apartment with restless energy. Continue as my secretary, but with the understanding that I support your writing. Time off when you need it. Resources, connections to publishers I know. Or... He stopped, turning to face me. Something else entirely. Something neither of us has been willing to acknowledge. My heart stuttered. What do you mean? He crossed to the bed, sitting close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell his cologne mixed with a day's worth of stubble and exhaustion. You know what I mean, Audrey. This thing between us. This pull we've both been fighting since the day I hired you. There's nothing. I started to lie. Don't. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with devastating gentleness. Don't lie to me. Not after I've seen you like this, vulnerable and real. Not after I've spent the night watching you sleep and realizing that somewhere along the way, you became the most important person in my world. Tears pricked my eyes. You're my boss. This is inappropriate. Dangerous. I'm a lot of things, Angel, but I've never claimed to be appropriate or safe. His thumb traced along my jawline, and I shivered for reasons that had nothing to do with fever. But I am careful with what belongs to me. And you belong to me now, whether we acknowledge it or not. The possessiveness in his words should have frightened me. Instead, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest. Something that had been frozen for so long I'd forgotten it could thaw. I belong to myself, I whispered, but there was no conviction in it. Do you? His voice was low, intimate, dangerous. Then why does your heart race when I'm near? Why do you watch me through your office window when you think I'm not looking? Why did you push yourself to pneumonia rather than disappoint me? Because I'd fallen for him somewhere between filed contracts and late nights. Between stolen glances and the careful distance we maintained. Because he'd become the center of my world without either of us meaning for it to happen. This is a bad idea, I said, even as my hand came up to rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath my palm. The best ideas usually are. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against mine. I'm not a good man, Audrey. I've done terrible things. I'll do more terrible things. But with you, I want to be better. For you, I want to try. Alexander. His name on my lips, not Mr. Grayson, felt like crossing a line we could never uncross. Say it again. His voice was rough with something that sounded like need. Say my name. Alexander. And then his lips were on mine, gentle despite the hunger I felt coiled in his body, careful like I was something precious and breakable. I kissed him back with 2 years of suppressed longing. With every late night I'd watched him work and wanted to smooth away the tension in his shoulders. With every moment I'd pretended he was just my boss when he'd become so much more. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine again. Mine, he breathed. Tell me you're mine, Audrey. This is insane. We work together. You're my boss. This could ruin everything. Or it could save us both. His hands framed my face with devastating tenderness. I haven't felt alive in years, Audrey. Not since my father died and I inherited an empire built on blood and fear. But you make me feel human again. You make me want to be human again. I'm afraid, I admitted, of this, of you, of how much I already feel for you when I barely know you. Then let me fix that. Let me show you who I am beneath the power and the violence. Let me prove I can be the man you deserve. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, achingly gentle. Just give me a chance, Angel. That's all I'm asking. Against every logical thought in my head, against every self-preservation instinct I possessed, I heard myself whisper, "Okay." His smile was slow and devastating and full of promises that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. "Okay," he echoed. And as he pulled me carefully into his arms, mindful of my illness, holding me like I was the most valuable thing in his empire, I realized that everything had just changed. The careful distance we'd maintained had shattered, and there was no going back to what we were before. We'd crossed the line from boss and secretary into something infinitely more dangerous and necessary, and God help me, I didn't want to go back. 3 days later, I returned to work against the doctor's orders and Alexander's explicit instructions. I'd spent those days in my apartment with Alexander, checking in constantly. Texts, calls, surprise visits with food from restaurants I couldn't pronounce. Each interaction chipped away at the careful walls I'd built around my heart. But I couldn't hide forever, and I needed to prove that what happened Christmas Eve hadn't changed my ability to do my job. The moment I stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, I felt the shift. Heads turned. Whispers followed me like shadows. I kept my gaze straight ahead, moving toward my desk outside Alexander's office with practiced efficiency. Well, look who finally decided to show up. The voice belonged to Jessica Chen, senior account manager and the closest thing to a mean girl I'd encountered in corporate America. She perched on the edge of my desk, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the wood. "We heard you had quite the Christmas." I set down my bag, meeting her calculating gaze. "I was sick. Mr. Grayson was kind enough to ensure I received medical attention." "Is that what we're calling it?" Her smile was razor sharp. "Spending the night in your apartment? Very hands-on medical attention." My blood ran cold. "How did you?" "The driver talks. The doorman talks. Everyone talks, Audrey." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a stage whisper that carried to the 3 other assistants, pretending not to listen. "You think you're special? You think you're the first secretary to catch Alexander Grayson's eye? Please, you're just the latest." The words hit like physical blows, but I forced my expression to remain neutral. "If you're finished, I have work to do." "Just friendly advice." She stood, smoothing her designer skirt. "Alexander Grayson doesn't do relationships. He does acquisitions, and when he's done with you, you'll be just another name on a very long list." She walked away, heels clicking against marble, leaving poison in her wake. I sank into my chair, hands trembling as I powered on my computer. Was she right? Was I just another conquest, a temporary distraction for a man who collected and discarded women like expensive watches? "Miss Miller." Alexander's voice made me look up. He stood in his doorway, impeccable in a navy suit, his gray eyes sharp as they took in my pale face. "My office. Now." I followed on unsteady legs, hyper-aware of the eyes tracking our movement. He closed the door behind us, the click of the lock seeming unnaturally loud. "You shouldn't be here." His voice was controlled, but I heard the anger beneath it. "The doctor said 5 days minimum. I'm fine. You're still recovering from pneumonia." He crossed to me in 3 long strides, his hand coming to my forehead in a gesture that was becoming familiar. "No fever, at least. But you're pale. Exhausted." I needed to work. I stepped back from his touch, needing distance to think. And apparently, I needed to face the gossip mill. His expression darkened. "What gossip?" "Everyone knows you spent Christmas at my apartment. They're talking about us." I wrapped my arms around myself. "Jessica Chen just informed me I'm your latest acquisition, implied there have been many before me." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Jessica Chen is about to find herself reassigned to our Alaska office." "Don't." The word came out sharper than intended. "Don't punish people for talking. That'll just confirm everything they're saying." "They have no right." They have every right to talk about their boss sleeping with his secretary. I met his gaze steadily. That's what we are now, isn't it? Boss and secretary having an inappropriate relationship. He was silent for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he moved to his desk, pressing a button on his phone. Marcus, clear my schedule for the next 2 hours. Sir, you have the Castellano meeting at... Reschedule it. He released the button, turning back to me. Sit down, Audrey. We're going to talk. Really talk. I sat, my heart hammering as he settled into the chair beside mine rather than behind his desk. The choice felt significant, a removal of barriers. Jessica was wrong about one thing. He said quietly, There's never been anyone before you. Not like this. But there have been others. It wasn't a question. Yes, brief, transactional, nothing that lasted past a few weeks. His eyes held mine. I learned early that relationships in my world are dangerous. People use intimacy as a weapon. They get close to gather intelligence, to find weaknesses, to manipulate. So I kept everyone at arm's length, no one close enough to hurt me, no one real enough to matter. Until me. Until you. He reached out, taking my hand in his thumb tracing circles on my palm. You were never supposed to matter, Audrey. You were supposed to be efficient and invisible and forgettable. But you weren't. You noticed things. You anticipated needs before I voiced them. You worked yourself sick rather than complain. And somewhere in those long nights, you became the most real thing in my life. The raw honesty in his voice made my chest tight. Alexander, this is dangerous for both of us. The gossip is just the beginning. If people know you care about me, they'll try to use you against me. I know. His grip tightened on my hand. That's why we need rules, boundaries, protection. What kind of protection? He was quiet for a moment, his expression troubled. There's something I need to tell you. About my world. About what being with me really means. Dread pooled in my stomach. What is it? I told you my business has gray areas. That was a lie, or at least a severe understatement. He stood, pacing to the window, his shoulders tight. My father built an empire that spans both legitimate business and other operations. When he died, I inherited all of it. The good and the very, very bad. You're talking about the Mafia. I said what we'd both been dancing around. Yes. He turned to face me. I run the Grayson family. We control shipping, protection, certain political connections. I've tried to legitimize, to move away from my father's methods. But there are obligations, alliances, enemies who would love nothing more than to see me fall. And being with you puts a target on my back. Yes. The admission was stark, honest. Anyone I care about becomes a liability, a weakness to exploit. He crossed back to me, kneeling so we were eye level. That's why if we do this, if we continue this, it has to be with full understanding of the risks, and with precautions in place. What kind of precautions? Security. A driver, someone watching your apartment, moving you somewhere safer eventually. His hands found mine again. I know it sounds controlling, but it's necessary, Audrey. I can't protect you if I don't know where you are, who you're with, what threats might be emerging. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. The same thing I'd felt Christmas Eve when he'd stayed to care for me. When he'd threatened my landlord, when he'd called me angel like it was a prayer. This wasn't about control for its own sake. This was about a man terrified of losing something precious. What about your ex-girlfriend? I asked, remembering Jessica's insinuations. Is she a threat? His expression darkened. There's only one woman from my past who might cause problems. Vivienne Marchand. We were engaged 3 years ago. It ended badly. How badly? She wanted access to my business, not me, but what I represented. Power, money, connections. He exhaled sharply. When I realized she'd been feeding information to a rival family, I ended it. Publicly. Humiliatingly. She swore she'd make me regret it. And has she? Not yet. But Vivienne is patient. And vindictive. His eyes met mine. If she learns about you, she'll see you as a weapon to use against me. Then maybe we should stop this before it goes any further. The words hurt to say, but logic demanded them. Before I become another casualty in your war. No. The word was firm, absolute. He stood, pulling me to my feet and into his arms. I'm done pretending I don't want you. Done keeping you at arm's length because it's safer. Maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I'm damning us both. But I'm choosing you, Audrey. The question is whether you're brave enough to choose me back. I looked up at this complicated, dangerous man who'd somehow become essential to me, who made me feel seen and valued and protected in ways I'd never experienced, who was offering me honesty even when it was ugly, who was warning me of dangers while promising to shield me from them. I'm terrified, I admitted. Good. Fear keeps you smart. His hands framed my face. But don't let it keep you from living. From taking risks. From choosing something real over something safe. You're asking me to trust you with my life. I'm asking you to trust me with your heart. His voice dropped lower, and I'm promising to guard it with everything I have, everything I am. I rose on my toes, pressing my lips to his in answer. The kiss was different from Christmas Eve, less desperate, more certain, a claiming on both sides, an acknowledgement of what we were becoming. When we broke apart, his smile was slow and possessive. Mine, he breathed. Yours, I agreed, sealing my fate with that single word. A sharp knock on the door made us spring apart. Alexander's expression shifted instantly from tender to cold authority. Come in. Marcus, his head of security, entered. His face was grim. Sir, we have a situation. Vivienne Marchand is in the lobby. She's demanding to see you. Alexander's whole body went taut. How did she know I'd be here? Unknown, sir, but she's making a scene. Says she has information about the Volkov deal that you'll want to hear. I watched Alexander's expression shudder completely, becoming the ruthless businessman I recognized from board meetings. Have her escorted to conference room B. Tell her I'll see her in 10 minutes. He waited until Marcus left before turning to me. Stay here. Don't leave this office until I come back. Alexander, please, Audrey. His hand cupped my face one more time. Trust me to handle this, and whatever you hear, whatever anyone tells you, remember what I just said. You're mine. That's not changing. He left, and I was alone with my racing heart and the terrible certainty that this was just the beginning. The storm we'd weathered on Christmas Eve was nothing compared to what was coming, and I had no idea if we'd survive it. 20 minutes crawled by like hours. I tried to work, to focus on emails and spreadsheets, but my mind kept circling back to Alexander and Vivienne in that conference room. What was she telling him? What information did she have? And why did the thought of them alone together make my chest tight with something that felt dangerously like jealousy? When the office door finally opened, I looked up expecting Alexander. Instead, Vivienne Marchand glided in like she owned the place. She was stunning in the way only money and meticulous maintenance could achieve. Platinum blonde hair and a perfect chignon, a cream Chanel suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my salary, diamonds glittering at her throat and ears. She looked like she'd stepped from the pages of Vogue, all sharp edges and calculated perfection. So, you're the little secretary everyone's gossiping about. Her voice was cultured, dismissive, her blue eyes raking over me with undisguised contempt. How quaint, I stood, keeping my voice level. This is Mr. Grayson's private office. You shouldn't be here. And yet here I am. She moved closer, circling me like a predator assessing prey. Let me guess. You think you're special? You think Alexander actually cares about you? That's between Alexander and me. She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Oh, sweetie, there is no you and Alexander. There's Alexander and his obsessions. And trust me, those obsessions never last. She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. I was where you are 3 years ago. The special one. The different one. He made me the same promises I'm sure he's made you. Protection. Devotion. Forever. Then you betrayed him. I met her gaze steadily. So clearly the situations aren't comparable. Her eyes flashed with anger. Is that what he told you? That I betrayed him? She shook her head, something almost like pity crossing her features. Alexander Grayson doesn't do relationships, little girl. He does acquisitions. And when you no longer serve a purpose, when you stop being shiny and new, he'll discard you just like he did me. Just like he's done to everyone who's ever gotten close. If you're finished, I'm not. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos before turning the screen toward me. Recognize her? I looked at the image. A beautiful brunette in Alexander's arms, both of them laughing at some charity gala. No. Miranda Castellano, 6 months before me. He promised her the world, then dumped her the moment a better strategic alliance presented itself. And her? Another photo, a redhead this time. Sophia Laurent, lasted 3 months, and her... Stop. I pushed the phone away, my stomach churning. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know what you're getting into. Her voice softened, almost sounding genuine. I'm not the villain here, Audrey. I'm trying to save you from making my mistake, from believing that Alexander Grayson is capable of love when all he knows is possession and control. The door opened before I could respond. Alexander stood there, his expression absolutely glacial. Get out, Vivian. I was just having a chat with your new acquisition. She smiled sweetly, but there was venom beneath it. Making sure she understands the rules of your little game. Out, now, before I have security remove you forcibly. She brushed past him, pausing in the doorway. Oh, and Alexander? That information about the Volkov deal? It was a test, to see if you'd drop everything to see me. And you did. Her smile widened. Some things never change. After she left, silence filled the office like poison gas. Alexander closed the door carefully, his movements controlled, but I could see the tension radiating through his shoulders. Whatever she told you, he started. Is it true? I interrupted. Were there others, women you promised things to and then discarded? It's complicated. That's not an answer. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Yes, there were women before you. Some I dated briefly. Most were strategic, appearances at events, alliances with other families. None of them were real, Audrey. None of them mattered. But you made them think they mattered. No. His voice was firm. I was always clear about what those relationships were. Temporary, transactional. Vivian wanted more than I could give. And when I ended things, she twisted the narrative to make herself the victim. And the others? Miranda? Sophia? His jaw tightened. You've been doing research. Or Vivian showed you her little collection of evidence. She showed me photos of you with other women, looking exactly like you look with me. He crossed to me in 2 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders. Those women were performances, public appearances to maintain alliances, to show strength, to play the game my world demands. But they never came to my home. never saw me like you've seen me, never mattered enough to keep me up at night worrying about their safety. How do I know I'm not just another performance? The question hurt to ask, but I needed the answer. Because I'm standing here explaining myself when I've never explained myself to anyone. His voice roughened. Because I spent Christmas Eve caring for you instead of closing $1 billion deal. Because the thought of you hurt, scared, or in danger makes me want to burn the world down. That's not performance, Audrey. That's real. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly it physically hurt. But Vivienne's words echoed in my mind. Obsession, acquisition, discard. I need time, I said quietly. To think. To process all of this. Pain flashed across his face before he controlled it. Of course. Take the rest of the day. I'll have Marcus drive you home. I can take the subway. No. The word was absolute. If you won't accept that you're mine, at least accept that you're in danger. Vivienne knows about you now. That makes you a target. So you'll take Marcus, and you'll let him ensure you get home safely, and you'll think about everything you need to think about. But you'll be safe while you do it. The command should have made me angry. Instead, I felt cared for, protected. Even as my mind spun with doubts, my heart recognized the truth in his actions. Okay, I agreed. He walked me to the elevator, his hand at the small of my back, a gesture of possession that half the office probably saw. I didn't care anymore. Let them talk. I had bigger concerns than gossip. Marcus was waiting in the lobby, professional and imposing in his dark suit. The drive to my apartment was silent, but I felt his eyes checking the mirrors constantly, assessing threats I couldn't see. When we arrived, he walked me to my door. Miss Miller, Mr. Grayson asked me to give you this. He handed me a small gift box. And to tell you that whatever you decide, your safety is his priority. After he left, I opened the box with trembling fingers. Inside was a phone. New, expensive, already programmed with Alexander's number, and Marcus's. And a note in Alexander's bold handwriting. This phone is secure, untraceable. If you're ever in danger, use it. Day or night, I'll come for you. Not because you're mine, but because I'm yours. I sank onto my couch, the phone clutched in my hand, and let the tears finally fall. This was impossible, dangerous. Everything rational told me to run, to quit my job, to disappear before I got in too deep. But my heart, that traitorous organ, whispered something else entirely. That Alexander Grayson, with all his darkness and danger, was the first person who'd ever truly seen me. Who'd ever made me feel valuable for who I was, rather than what I could do. My regular phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoy your little romance while it lasts. But remember what I showed you. Alexander Grayson destroys everything he touches. You'll be next. V. I stared at the message, fear and anger warring in my chest. Vivienne was trying to manipulate me, to plant seeds of doubt. But what if she was right? What if I was just deluding myself, seeing love where there was only obsession? A knock at my door made me jump. I checked the peephole expecting Marcus. Instead, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, professional but warm, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Miss Miller, my name is Elena Rodriguez. I'm a friend of Alexander's. May I come in? Every instinct screamed not to open the door. But something about her felt genuine, unthreatening. I cracked the door, keeping the chain engaged. What do you want? To talk. About Alexander. About what being in his life really means. She held up her hands, showing they were empty. I'm not here to hurt you or manipulate you. I'm here because I know what you're going through, and I thought you might need someone who understands. Who are you really? I was married to Alexander's cousin, before he was killed 3 years ago in a territory dispute. Her eyes held genuine sorrow. I know this world, Audrey. I know the danger and the cost, but I also know that Alexander Grayson is not the monster people think he is, and I thought you deserved to hear that from someone who has no agenda except honesty. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Elena entered, bringing with her a sense of calm I desperately needed. "Tell me everything," I said. "The truth, no matter how ugly." And she did. For the next 2 hours, Elena told me about the Grayson family, about Alexander's father, who'd been brutal and cold, who'd raised his son to value power over people, about how Alexander had tried to change things when he took over, to move the family toward legitimate business, to reduce the violence his father had embraced. "It's not perfect," she admitted. "Alexander still operates in gray areas, still makes hard choices, but he's not his father. He actually cares about the people in his life. He's just terrible at showing it in ways that don't look like control. Vivienne said he destroys everyone he touches. Vivienne betrayed him in the worst way possible. She sold information that got 3 of his men killed. When he found out, he could have killed her. Instead, he just exiled her from his world. She's been trying to hurt him ever since." Elena took my hand. "But here's what you need to understand about Alexander. When he loves someone, he's all in. Completely, obsessively, sometimes suffocatingly. It's not healthy by normal standards. But in his world, that kind of devotion is what keeps people alive. How do I know if he really loves me or if I'm just another acquisition?" She smiled sadly. "You don't. Not for certain. But I can tell you this. I've known Alexander for 15 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you when he called me this afternoon. Desperate for someone to help you understand. That's not obsession, Audrey. That's love. Terrifying, overwhelming. Possibly doomed love, but love nonetheless." Her words settled over me like a blanket, warm and heavy. "What should I do?" "That's your choice. You can run, and no one would blame you. This life is hard, dangerous, full of impossible compromises." She squeezed my hand. "Or you can stay and see where it leads. But if you stay, do it with your eyes open. Know what you're accepting. Know the cost." After Elena left, I sat in the growing darkness, the secure phone Alexander had given me resting in my palm. One call. That's all it would take. One call, and he'd be here. One call, and I'd be choosing him despite the danger, despite the doubts, despite everything sensible telling me to run. My finger hovered over his name, and then I pressed call. He answered before the first ring finished. "Audrey." "Come over," I whispered. "Please. I need to see you." "I'm already on my way." Of course he was. Probably had been since I got home, waiting nearby in case I needed him. The thought should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like safety. 10 minutes later, he was at my door. No suit this time, just dark jeans and a black sweater that emphasized his powerful build. His hair was disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes were shadowed with worry. "Audrey." I pulled him inside and kissed him, cutting off whatever he'd planned to say. Kissed him with every ounce of fear and hope, and desperate need churning inside me. He responded instantly, his arms coming around me, holding me like I might disappear if he loosened his grip. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I looked up at him and made my choice. "I'm yours," I said simply. "Completely, terrifyingly yours. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise that if this becomes too dangerous, if staying with you means I'll get hurt or killed, you'll let me go. You'll protect me by pushing me away if necessary. Pain lanced across his face. Audrey, promise me, Alexander, because I can accept the danger of being with you. But I can't accept you sacrificing yourself to keep me when it would be smarter to let me go. He was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled me close, his lips against my hair. I promise that your safety will always come first, even above my need for you, even if it destroys me. It was the best I'd get, and maybe it was enough. Then show me, I whispered. Show me what being yours really means. His answer was a kiss that promised everything: protection and passion, danger and devotion, a future that was uncertain, but undeniably ours. And as he lifted me into his arms, carrying me toward my bedroom, I chose to believe in the impossible. I chose to believe in us. The next morning, I walked into the office on Alexander's arm, not following behind him like a secretary, but beside him like an equal. The statement was deliberate, unmistakable. Every head turned, every conversation stopped. Jessica Chen's expression was priceless. "Good morning, everyone," Alexander said, his voice carrying the weight of authority that made boardrooms tremble. "I have an announcement. Miss Miller will be transitioning from her role as my personal secretary to a new position as special advisor to the CEO. Her insights and intelligence have proven invaluable, and I'm formalizing that relationship." The word relationship hung in the air, weighted with double meaning. "She'll maintain an office on this floor and will be involved in all major strategic decisions going forward. I expect you to treat her with the same respect you show me." His hand tightened on my waist, a possessive gesture everyone could see. "Are we clear?" A chorus of "Yes, sir," followed, but I saw the calculation in their eyes, the reassessment. I was no longer just the secretary. I was the woman Alexander Grayson had chosen to elevate. That made me either very powerful or very dangerous to know. Probably both. My new office was next to Alexander's, separated by a connecting door he insisted remain unlocked. "So I can see you," he'd said, "so I know you're safe." The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, I found it oddly comforting. This was who he was, a man who protected what he valued with single-minded intensity. I was settling into the space when my new phone buzzed. "Alexander, lunch, my office, 1 hour." I smiled at the command disguised as invitation. This was our new normal. Stolen moments between meetings, touches that lasted seconds too long, the constant awareness of each other even in a room full of people. But the peace lasted exactly 4 days. I was reviewing acquisition proposals when Marcus appeared in my doorway, his expression grim. "Miss Miller, Mr. Grayson asked me to brief you on a situation." My stomach dropped. "What situation?" "Marcus Volkov. He's a rival, runs shipping operations that compete with ours. There's been tension for months, but it's escalating." He handed me a folder. "These arrived this morning." I opened it to find photos of me leaving my apartment, walking to the subway, sitting in a cafe near my building. All taken in the last week, all without my knowledge. "He's watching me." The words came out flat, emotionless, my mind struggling to process the violation. "Yes, it's a message to Mr. Grayson, an implied threat." Marcus's voice was carefully neutral. "Mr. Grayson wanted you to understand the reality of your situation. You're not just his advisor now. You're his weakness, and people like Volkov will exploit that." I stared at the photos, fear and anger warring in my chest. What does Alexander want me to do? Move. Today. There's a secure apartment in his building. Top floor, full security, completely safe. He paused. "He's asking, Miss Miller, not ordering, but he's terrified for you." The thought of leaving my independence, my own space, made me want to refuse. But the photos told a different story. I wasn't safe, and my stubborn pride wasn't worth my life. "Tell him yes," I said quietly. "I'll move today." Relief crossed Marcus's face. "I'll arrange everything." 2 hours later, I was in Alexander's office, the photos spread across his desk. He stood by the window, his back to me, every line of his body radiating barely contained rage. "I should have anticipated this," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Should have moved you somewhere secure the moment we became public. You couldn't have known. I should have known." He spun to face me, and the fury in his eyes made me step back. "This is my world, Audrey. I know how these men think, how they operate, and I let my need for you blind me to the danger I was putting you in. Alexander, Volkov is sending a message that he can reach you anytime he wants, that I can't protect you." His hands clenched into fists. "And he's right. As long as you're vulnerable, as long as there's any way to get to you, I can't keep you safe. So what do we do?" He crossed to me, his hands framing my face with devastating gentleness, despite the violence I saw simmering in his eyes. "You move into my building today. You get 24-hour security. You don't go anywhere without Marcus or one of my other men. And you let me handle Volkov." "What does handle mean?" "Nothing you need to worry about." His voice was firm. "This is my world, Angel. Let me protect you the way I know how. By doing something illegal, violent." I searched his face. "Alexander, I can't be the reason you become the monster everyone thinks you are. I've always been a monster, Audrey. You just made me want to pretend otherwise." His thumb traced my lower lip. "But for you, I'll be whatever monster is necessary. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. And I won't apologize for it." And the absoluteness in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something else. The certainty that this man would burn the world down before letting anyone hurt me. "Promise me you won't kill him," I whispered. "Promise me you'll find another way." He was silent for a long moment. Then he exhaled sharply. "I promise I'll try. For you, I'll try." It was the best I'd get. The penthouse apartment Alexander moved me into was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture in shades of cream and gray, a bedroom larger than my entire previous apartment. It was beautiful and sterile, and felt nothing like home. Until Alexander arrived that evening with dinner and his laptop, settling onto the couch like he planned to stay. "You don't have to babysit me," I said, even as I curled against his side, craving the solid warmth of him. "I'm not babysitting. I'm working from a more comfortable location." His arm came around me, pulling me closer. "And ensuring you eat something besides coffee and anxiety." I laughed despite everything. "Is that your professional medical opinion?" "It's my professional boyfriend opinion." He said it casually, but I felt him tense slightly, as if uncertain how I'd react to the label. "Boyfriend." I tested the word. "That seems too normal for what we are." "What are we then?" I looked up at him, at this complicated, dangerous man who'd somehow become essential to me. "Everything. You're everything, Alexander." His kiss was gentle, reverent, completely at odds with the violence I knew he was capable of. "Mine," he breathed against my lips. "Say it again." "Yours, always yours." We ate dinner curled together on the couch, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his childhood, about a father who'd valued power over love, about learning to hide emotions because they were weaknesses to exploit. I told him about my parents, about the loneliness of being orphaned young, about dreams deferred in favor of survival. "You're going to write again," he said suddenly. "Your novel. I want you to finish it. I don't have time. Make time. That's an order from your boss. His smile was slight but genuine. I'm cutting your hours to 25 per week. The rest of the time, you write. And when it's finished, I'll ensure it gets published. You can't just... I can, and I will. His voice was firm. You're not sacrificing your dreams for me, Audrey. I won't allow it. The high-handedness should have annoyed me. Instead, I felt cherished. Protected not just physically, but in every way that mattered. Thank you, I whispered. That night, he stayed. Not in the guest room, but with me, holding me through the darkness, his presence a shield against every fear that tried to creep in. 3 days later, I was in my office when Jessica appeared, her expression strangely subdued. Audrey, can we talk? I looked up, surprised. About what? About me being a complete bitch to you. She closed the door, leaning against it. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. What brought this on? Alexander called me into his office this morning. Told me in very explicit terms that if I ever spoke to you with disrespect again, I'd be fired. Not reassigned. Fired. With a recommendation so scathing I'd never work in this city again. She exhaled sharply. But he also told me something else. That you'd asked him not to punish anyone for gossiping about you two. That you defended me when he wanted to destroy my career. I hadn't known Alexander had followed through on his threat. Or that he'd told Jessica about my intervention. I was jealous, she admitted. You came in as a secretary, and within 2 years, you had Alexander Grayson looking at you like you hung the moon. I've worked here for 5 years and he barely knows my name. Jessica, let me finish. She held up a hand. I was wrong. About you being just another acquisition. About him getting bored. I see how he looks at you, Audrey. Like you're the only real thing in his world. That's not something he's ever felt before, and I'm genuinely sorry for trying to poison that because I was envious. The apology caught me off guard. Thank you for saying that. Also, fair warning. Vivienne Marchand has been calling the office, trying to get meetings with various executives, asking questions about you. Her expression was serious. I think she's building a case for something. I don't know what, but it's not good. Fear prickled down my spine. Does Alexander know? I just came from his office. He knows. She paused at the door. Be careful, Audrey. Vivienne is vindictive and connected, and she hates Alexander enough to destroy anyone he cares about. After she left, I sat in silence, processing everything. This was my life now. Threats from rivals, warnings from former enemies turned allies, constant vigilance against dangers I barely understood. But when Alexander appeared in my doorway an hour later, his eyes finding mine across the room with that intense focus that made my heart race, I knew it was worth it. Every danger, every complication, every impossible choice. He was worth it. And I was finally brave enough to fight for what we were building. Together, we'd face whatever came next, even if it destroyed us both. The attack came on a Tuesday. I was leaving the office late, Marcus at my side as always, when the black van pulled up. 3 men emerged, moving with military precision. Marcus shoved me behind him, his hand going for the gun at his waist, but they were faster. The first shot took him in the shoulder. He went down hard, and then hands were on me, dragging me toward the van despite my screaming, despite my fighting, despite everything. A cloth pressed over my mouth and nose, chemical sweetness. The world blurred, darkened, disappeared. I woke to darkness, and the smell of rust and mildew. My head pounded, my mouth tasted like copper, and my hands were bound behind me to a chair. Terror clawed up my throat as my eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through a high, dirty window. I was in some kind of warehouse, empty, isolated, The kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. She's awake. A man's voice, accented. Russian. Footsteps echoed across concrete. Marcus Volkov emerged from the shadows, followed by two others. He was mid-50s, silver-haired, with cold eyes that assessed me like merchandise. Miss Miller. Finally, we meet. His smile was reptilian. I apologize for the dramatic introduction, but your boyfriend doesn't respond well to polite requests. What do you want? My voice came out steadier than I felt. The same thing everyone wants from Alexander Grayson. Compliance, cooperation. He circled me slowly. You see, your boyfriend has been interfering with my operations, stealing contracts, undercutting prices, making my life very difficult. I've tried reasoning with him, but Alexander is stubborn. So you kidnapped me. I borrowed you. He stopped in front of me. Temporarily. Just long enough to convince Alexander that continued interference will have consequences. Personal consequences. He'll kill you for this. Volkov laughed. Perhaps. But first he'll give me what I want. The shipping contracts in question. Control of the port operations. Several other concessions. He pulled out his phone. And to ensure his cooperation, I'm going to send him proof that I have you, that I can do whatever I want to you unless he complies. Fear turned to ice in my veins. Don't. His hand shot out, gripping my face hard enough to bruise. You don't give orders here, little girl. You're nothing but a bargaining chip. A weakness in Alexander Grayson's armor that I'm going to exploit until he breaks. He positioned his phone, taking photos of me bound and terrified. Each click felt like a violation, a weapon being forged to hurt Alexander. Perfect. He'll hate seeing you like this, helpless, afraid. Volkov's smile widened. And if he doesn't give me what I want within 6 hours, I'll send him pictures of what happens to pretty girls who fall for dangerous men. He left me alone in the dark, bound and shaking, my mind racing through possibilities. Alexander would come. I knew that with absolute certainty. But would he come in time? And what would he do when he found me? What monster would I unleash by being his weakness? I lost track of time in the darkness. Could have been hours or minutes, my fear distorting perception. Then I heard it. Gunfire. Distant at first, then closer. Shouts, more shots. The sounds of violence I'd been sheltered from suddenly erupting around me. The warehouse door exploded inward. Alexander stood silhouetted in the opening, flanked by Marcus, alive despite being shot, and a dozen other men. He was in all black, a gun in his hand, his face a mask of controlled fury that made him look like the vengeful god he was in this world. His eyes found me across the space, and something in his expression shattered. The control cracked, revealing the terror beneath. Audrey. My name was a prayer and a curse on his lips. Volkov appeared from behind me, his own gun suddenly pressed to my temple. Stop right there, Grayson, or I blow her pretty brains across this concrete. Alexander froze. Every man with him froze. The air itself seemed to freeze, charged with potential violence. Let her go, Marcus. Alexander's voice was deadly calm. This is between you and me. She's innocent. She stopped being innocent the moment she spread her legs for you. Volkov's cruel words made Alexander's gun hand tighten. You want her back? You give me everything I asked for. The contracts, the ports, full control of the eastern shipping lanes. Done. Alexander didn't hesitate. It's yours. All of it. Just let her go. Alexander, no. I started, but Volkov's gun pressed harder against my skull. And you step down as head of the Grayson family. Transfer power to someone I choose. Silence. This was more than business. This was everything. Alexander's entire empire, his legacy, his identity. All of it, for me. Done, Alexander said again, his voice flat. I'll draw up the papers tonight, but I deliver them personally, and you let her walk out of here now, unharmed. Volkov laughed. You'd give up everything? For one woman? Your father would be ashamed. My father is dead, and I'm choosing her. Alexander's eyes met mine across the distance, and I saw everything in that gaze. Love, devotion, a willingness to burn his entire world down if it meant keeping me safe. I'm always choosing her. The words broke something in me. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was offering to sacrifice everything for me. Not because he had to, but because I mattered more than power, more than legacy, more than anything. How touching, Volkov sneered. But I think... He didn't finish. Alexander moved with inhuman speed, his shot perfectly placed. Volkov's gun arm, not his head, the precision of someone who'd trained for exactly this scenario. Volkov screamed, his gun falling, and I threw myself sideways out of the chair, my bound hands making me crash hard against the concrete. Then Alexander's men were everywhere, securing Volkov and his associates with brutal efficiency. And Alexander was there, cutting my bonds with a knife that appeared from nowhere, pulling me into his arms with a desperation that stole my breath. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. He repeated it like a mantra, his hands running over me, checking for injuries, his whole body shaking with adrenaline and fear. God, Audrey, I thought... I'm fine. I wrapped my arms around him, holding him as tightly as he held me. I knew you'd come. Always, I'll always come for you. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his hands framing my face. But I can't do this anymore. Can't risk you like this. Audrey, I need you to leave. Tonight. I'll set you up somewhere safe. Somewhere no one knows to look, with enough money to never worry again. But you have to go. Before someone else tries this. Before I lose you for real. The words hit like physical blows. What? You were right. Being with me makes you a target, and I can't... His voice broke. I can't watch you die because of me, so I'm letting you go, pushing you away before this world destroys you. No. The word came out fierce, absolute. You don't get to make that choice for me. Audrey, I said no. I gripped his shirt, refusing to let go. You think I didn't know the risks? You think I didn't understand what being yours meant? I chose this, Alexander. I chose you. And I'm not leaving just because it got dangerous. You could have died tonight. But I didn't. Because you came for me. I pulled him closer, our foreheads touching. This is who we are. You're the man who'd give up everything to save me. And I'm the woman who'd rather face danger with you than safety without you. So stop trying to protect me from yourself and just let me love you. You love me? His voice was raw, vulnerable. I love you, completely, terrifyingly, probably stupidly. But I love you, Alexander Grayson. All of you. Even the parts that scare me. His kiss was desperate, claiming, a seal on promises we were both making. When we broke apart, his eyes were suspiciously bright. Then marry me, he said. Not because it makes sense or provides protection or serves some strategic purpose. Marry me because I love you so much it physically hurts. Because you're the only real thing in my life. Because I want to spend every day proving I'm worthy of your choice. Yes. No hesitation, no doubt, just certainty. Yes, I'll marry you. His smile was devastating, transforming his face from hard to hopeful. Mine. Yours, I agreed. Always yours. 6 months later, I stood in a private garden overlooking the city, wearing a simple white dress and holding Alexander's hands while a judge pronounced us husband and wife. It was small, just Marcus and Elena, and a handful of people we actually trusted. No spectacle, no politics, just us choosing each other in front of witnesses. When Alexander kissed me, I tasted promise and forever, and the kind of love that survived darkness. We'd faced the fallout from that night together. Volkov was in prison, his organization dismantled. Vivian had made one final attempt to destroy us, leaking photos to the press of Alexander's criminal connections, but it had backfired when several of his legitimate business partners defended him publicly. The office gossip had died down once everyone realized we weren't going anywhere. Jessica had become an unexpected ally, running interference when needed. And I'd finished my novel. It was publishing next month, under my own name, the dedication simply reading, "For Alexander, who taught me that love and danger aren't opposites, but often the same thing." "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Grayson?" Alexander murmured, pulling me close as we swayed to music only we could hear. "That this is insane. That we barely survived the last 6 months. That being with you means living with danger and uncertainty and impossible choices." I looked up at him, this beautiful, dangerous man who'd claimed my heart so completely, and that I wouldn't change a single thing. Not even the kidnapping? Well, maybe that. I smiled. But everything else? No regrets. Good. Because I have plans for us, Angel. Big plans. His hand moved to rest on my stomach, where a secret neither of us had shared yet was just beginning to grow. Plans that involve a nursery, and a house outside the city with actual security, and a future where our children grow up knowing they're loved fiercely, even if their father is complicated. Tears pricked my eyes. "You know, I know everything about you, remember?" His smile was tender. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. I was waiting for the right time to tell you. And this wasn't the right time? He gestured at our wedding. "This is perfect." I kissed him softly. "Everything about this is perfect." That night, in the penthouse we now shared, Alexander made love to me with a reverence that spoke of promises and futures, and the kind of devotion that would weather any storm. "I love you," he whispered against my skin. "You and our child, my family, my everything." "I love you too," I breathed. "My monster, my protector, my home." And as we lay tangled together in the darkness, I thought about the girl who'd walked into a snowstorm 6 months ago, who'd been found shivering and sick by a man who'd claimed her as his own. That girl had been surviving. But this woman, this wife, this mother-to-be, this author, this partner to a powerful, dangerous, devoted man, was living. And that made every danger, every fear, every impossible choice worth it. Because love wasn't safe. Love wasn't simple. But with Alexander Grayson, love was real. And real was all I'd ever wanted.